I'm sitting here in the kitchen, kind of, I don't know, it's the end of my day, and I'm just sort of talking to my creatures before we wind everything down. And I was thinking a lot about what I wish was more known about behavioral problems like resource guarding in dogs. It's something that I'm good at working with. Bear here was surrendered for severe resource guarding. When he first got here, he would guard a pen if you dropped it on the floor. It was definitely a pretty hefty case of resource guarding. Hello, Fenris. What you doing, bud? Um, and I see a lot of trainers, especially like the big, online type of trainers, the real successful ones. They tend to approach the entire thing kind of from this robotic obedience, like this very structured obedience training perspective, as if what you need to do to control resource guarding is to have this, extreme control over the dog's behavior itself. Hi, bud. Hi. And that's not actually how you get amazing results in just a few months like we have with Bear. So I want you to take a look what he's doing right now. So I'm petting the cat. Now for Bear, he is one of those dogs where to him the highest resource in the house is affection. Now see that he's kind of doing that little bit of a blink thing right there. He's showing a touch of stress, honestly, at me giving this cat affection and not him. But you can see he's staying in a relaxed pose, and that blinking is kind of a... Sorry there, my phone rang. So what you just saw him do, that blinking gesture that he made towards the cat and me over here, because the cat's still here, that was him releasing kind of a self-soothing signal to himself, which was very successful. And you can see that he immediately laid down afterwards. This is a sign of an incredible amount of emotional regulation within him, meaning that he is in full control of the situation himself and the trigger, and he's comfortable enough with that trigger to lay down. And we made this progress in about 4 months, which is, if you know anything about working with resource guarders, for a lot of people considered very miraculous. But the trick to it, and there is kind of a trick to it, is not in strict control of all of the dog's movements and behaviors and turning the house into some kind of gigantic management situation, which is what a lot of people do. It is about changing the way the dog views resources in general. Finny, come on. He wants to go upstairs and go to bed. It's changing the way that the dog views resources in general, changing their relationship to resources, period, right? So in his case, when he came in, he was not having his needs met. In his previous situation, he was not getting enough mental or physical stimulation. There was no structure in the home. And by structure, I mean predictability. So, for example, when we go to put a leash on, we do it the same way every single time, right? He knows exactly what to expect and what is expected of him. That's what I mean when I talk about structure. I don't necessarily mean that things are all, snappy obedience and strict control, right? I actually feel that in that situation, working with a resource guarder, you're kind of going to go the wrong direction. You may temporarily see what looks like some improvement by suppressing the dog's behavior, but because you haven't changed their emotional response to the trigger, they just are suppressing it. And eventually, the behavior is going to break through that. And when it does, it's going to be more severe than what it was when you started. So the first thing, obviously, that I did was I made sure to get all of his physical needs met, right? Make sure that we got his nutrition game on point so he's not, having any nutritional gaps. I made sure that he was getting the appropriate amount of exercise and proper mental stimulation. Of course, he had to have time to decompress. But I started working with him on the resource guarding immediately. And the way I did that was simply by setting up situations where I got to kind of pantomime for him, do this big display of me watching his back. So, for example, what I would do is I'd feed him in the kitchen intentionally with a cat in the kitchen, knowing that that cat was going to, approach. They want to see what's going on in the food bowl. They want to see if they can steal something. I did that on purpose rather than strictly quarantine him where, and manage the situation. And then I let him watch me push the cat away. I let him watch me do that a couple of times and verbalize to the cat that he was not allowed to steal his food. And then he saw me pick the cat up and put him on the other side of the gate, right? I set this up multiple times. I did this multiple times right when he first got here. Another thing that I did was when we went outside and we were going for walks, because he hadn't been walked before, he was very anxious in any kind of environment outside, regardless. So when a car would go by, I would pull him in real close and I would get him on the inside, right? I would step between him and the car. We'd stop moving. I'd make a big show of using my leg to kind of sweep him behind me. And I would stand there facing the car, the threat, quote unquote, with him behind me. And I did this every single time, consistently, every single walk, right? And anytime that there was anything that he gave any indication he felt uncomfortable with or threatened by, I got in between him and it. And I made a very big show of doing it. So what that is, I'm communicating in dog language. I'm saying to this dog, I am the leader who protects here. I will always have your back. You do not need to stay on guard anymore. You do not have to protect yourself anymore. You are safe, right? Just like this. You can see we've got the belly facing up, even though Cat is still sitting right here with me and he's totally comfortable with it. And so that's the most important first step, in my opinion, if you're dealing with a resource guarder in your life. The next thing, Cat woke him up. What happened? Oh, kitty make noise. And you can see even after 4 months with me, he's still very hyper vigilant. He's got his anxiety. Like we're not, we've got a long ways to go to, get where I believe he's capable of getting to. But that progress where, his trigger, me being his most valuable resource, right? And him watching another animal get that resource, and you saw him self-regulate successfully and then relax himself and go back to sleep. That is the kind of recovery from resource guarding that we should all be shooting for, that we should all be aiming for, is to create the ability in the animal to emotionally regulate themselves. So after you have communicated successfully to this animal that you are guarding them 100%, right? Anything they need, their needs are met, their safety is met, their food is met, they have all their needs met, right? So that's number one. Then you have to set up boundaries, right? So in our household, the bed is Switzerland, right? So rather than me say, oh, he's never allowed on the bed, which is what you hear a lot of trainers say, oh, just don't let the dog on the bed ever, and you'll never have the problem. I don't subscribe to that. All my animals are allowed on my bed, and they're all allowed on it at the same time. And Bear, when he first got comfortable enough to hop up on the bed, you can bet that he immediately, right, when a cat would hop up, would lift his lip and start growling. He'd start resource guarding. And immediately, and not with anger, right, not with screams or anything dramatic, it was just a very sharp verbal correction and a command to get off the bed. And that was it. I didn't make a big deal of it. That was all there was to it. And each time he would hop up on the bed and do that, he got kicked back out. I also made sure he saw that if a cat started any business, right? If a cat goes bat, if a cat is being mean, they also get a verbal correction and kicked off of the bed. It took him, I want to say, maybe 3 repetitions before he was getting on the bed with all of the cats, and he was not resource guarding anymore. He wasn't growling. He didn't even care that the cats existed. So there's a lot more that I can say about resource guarding, but I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts down because I feel like this is one of the big reasons people wind up surrendering dogs, and it's one of the easiest, in my opinion, behavioral problems to fix.